Hi, this is Kat Chancellor with Stamp Art Connection and StampArtConnection.com. I'm just loving this little bunny from the Easter Friends stamp set. Sometimes I just sit down and I think I'm going to make one card and I end up making four. So I'm going to show you four different versions of this Easter bunny sketch using watercolor paper, StazOn ink, and your Stamparatus. I'm also going to use shimmery white cardstock because what we're going to do is we're going to use watercolor pencils and a watercolor pad with some metallic watercolor paints. So first of all, you just want to start off with your Stamparatus, and in this case this is watercolor paper. I'm going to ink up my bunny really well and ensure that I get a nice good image. And again, I just love using the Stamparatus because if it doesn't come out dark enough the first time, all you have to do is add more ink. And there we go. Now I'm going to grab some shimmery white cardstock. Why I like shimmery white cardstock is because you can use this for watercoloring. This paper will not buckle the way normal cardstock, like just your basic white cardstock would buckle when you add water to it. So now I'm just simply aligning my image up to my watercolor or my shimmery white cardstock. I believe this is like 4 1/4 by 5 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I think is what the size is, and I kind of oversized it because we're going to use some die cuts, and we're going to die cut that down. Okay, so I have both of my images. I'm going to start out with the watercolor paper. I'm using watercolor pencils, and I'm going to use them in this order: Calypso, Coral, Melon, Mambo, Flirty, Flamingo, and Cherry Cobbler. Since this is an artist sketch of a bunny, you have the opportunity to it makes your coloring, your watercoloring a lot easier, because all you have to do is kind of follow the how the artist made the sketch and kind of colored in. So as with any watercolor painting, and especially when using watercolor pencils, you want to start with a base layer or a base color, and that's usually your lightest color. Then you add your next darkest color, and in this case it's going to be the next darkest color is going to be your Melon Mambo. So my base color was the Calypso Coral. Now I'm adding the Melon Mambo, and I'm following the shadows, the what we would call cross hatching that the artist used to kind of color in. Now I'm using kind of intermediary color, and this intermediary color is going to be Flirty Flamingo. It's going to be kind of a blend color. It's going to go between the Calypso Coral and the Melon Mambo, just to kind of give another little bit of kind of tone between the light and the dark color. So now I'm using the water painter, or Aqua Painter as it used to be known, and what I like to do is just kind of start with that base color, which is your middle color, add the layer of water to kind of spread that and smooth that color, then go into my shading, and by adding the color you can see that the pigment kind of pops, and then you can kind of spread it around your image. And here I want to add a little pink for my nose, and just add a little bit more of the watercolor pencil, and it adds the nice little pink. Now I'm using some Cherry Cobbler, and this Cherry Cobbler just adds a really dark dimension, and I'm kind of saving it for the creases or for where the really dark shadows are, like the bottom, around the bottom of his little face. And I'm going to grab my Aqua Painter or my water painter and just kind of blend that in as well. And you can see that offers kind of a nice gradient of color going from the light to the dark. I forgot to add a little bit of extra pigment here because I want those arms to kind of pop out. I don't want them to disappear on the body of our little rabbit. And there he is. So now for our next rabbit version, we're going to grab Cajun craze and crushed curry and some early espresso. Now for my base layer, this is the light layer that's going all over our image. We're using the crushed curry, and I'm just kind of just penciling that in lightly all around our image. And now I'm going to take the Cajun craze and I'm going to follow those shading marks for our sketched image and just kind of add the color there and all across his the bottom of his body. This kind of gives us that nice kind of change in color. And then for the darkest part, I'm using the early espresso, and you can see I'm getting a little bit better with this. And if you do, the more you do, the better you get. So just stamp a bunch of them and then just sit down and have fun coloring. It's very relaxing. Now I'm just going to add my Aqua Painter, and I'm starting out by just beginning to blend that our base layer, and then from there I'm going to start pulling in our shaded color, and that's the Cajun craze and the early espresso. Just kind of pulling that into the body and making sure it's blending. I was sitting there at my desk listening to a podcast, just enjoying the relaxation of coloring. If you just sit down and you just stamp a bunch of these and just start coloring, you'll find that it can be very, very relaxing. I just added a little bit of a Melon Mambo to the nose because I want the little nose to pop, and I had some of the gray watercolor pencil that I just kind of added to add a little extra coloring. Now this is metallic watercolors. This is a tray of colors that I have a link that will be in the body, and I wanted to try something different. Now again, I'm using the shimmery white cardstock with Stays On ink as my kind of my mat, and I'm taking the copper color, and I'm going to go, I'm using a different technique because I'm using the copper color where the shadows are. I'm doing that first. This is a little bit different than the other technique with the watercolor pencils, mostly because this is already wet. I'm adding the pigment directly onto the image. So I'm just kind of experimenting here and kind of I know I want this nice bronzy copper color. And now I'm going to mix it. It's kind of a champagne color, and that's the color I want for my base layer. So I'm kind of adding that and blending it into the copper shading that I added. Now this is a metallic black, and this is where I'm going to, much like I did for the cherry cobbler and for the early espresso, I'm just adding it to those areas where the crease lines are, where the deep shadows, you expect the deep shadows to be, which would be at the bottom, along his feet, where his arms cast a shadow across the body. And then I'm just adding some pink to his little nose there, so I can get a nice pink little nose, and kind of blending that. Now, one of the things that I like to do for any of my images, and this is kind of a graphic arts technique, is you take a color, and in this case I'm going to use my gray, and you add the color along the outline of your lined image. And what that does is that it kind of makes your image pop. So I just kind of want to show you how you can use your watercolor to kind of do that right when you're coloring it. I'll have another pen, and I'll have those products in my links below for the other pens that I use for my other the other versions that I'm going to create here. Okay, now I'm going to switch it up. I'm going back to my watercolor pencils, and this time I'm picking several colors because I want to do kind of a blue bunny, and I'm picking I believe I'm picking Balmy Blue and Pacific Point, and I'm putting the Balmy Blue all the way, again kind of going back to my original technique where I just want to spread the lightest color all over my image to kind of create that base color. Now I switched over to the Pacific Point, and I'm adding that into my shaded area. And again, you can see just watching it, I mean, it's just so relaxing. You just kind of go in, and once you kind of understand the image and you've done a couple of them, it just becomes so natural to color them. I mean, it's just really relaxing. So again, I take my Aqua Painter, my water painter, I'm just kind of blending that color, kind of getting that, as soon as that water touches that that pigment, it just kind of explodes with color, and then I can kind of spread it along its body. And kind of ensure I'm kind of getting all the shading and coloring correct. I'm just adding some more color where I may be lacking a little bit of dark shading. And again, once you put that water on it, it just kind of blends nicely and you have a nice effect. Of course, you can't forget the nose. Got to do the pink nose with Melon Mambo, and kind of give it a nice little accent there. So there you go. I have the 4 versions of the rabbits that I've colored: the blue rabbit, the pink rabbit, that really nice crushed curry rabbit, and then that pretty champagne rabbit that I did with the metallic watercolor pencils. Well, now we're going to accent the eyes, and this is going to make a big difference. I start out with a black gel pen, and again, all these products will be linked below. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cover the entire eye with the black gel pen, and I'm going to let it dry. And if it's a little wet, you can always use your heat tool to dry it out. And then I'm going to take the white gel pen, and I'm just going to put a little dot, and the dot will match what is in the sketch. But when you add this embellishment to your image, it really makes the little image pop. It really makes a difference. And see, I just put the little iris, a little pupil, little white pupil there, and it just makes such a difference. You'll see how pretty that looks. Look at that. It's just an artistic tip for kind of making your image pop a little bit. Now we're going to use the ink for putting the grass on the bottom of at the foot of our bunny. Now I'm just using some of the Post-it note that is the Post-it note that has adhesive all over it. Again, that's in my links that you'll find in my favorite products. I just take that off, and I'm using Pear Pizzazz. I think Pear Pizzazz just gives the right color of green. It's not too bright, not too dark. It's just really kind of a perfect shade for our bunnies. I just go ahead and put that on both sides. Now I did change it up for this next one because if the pear pizzazz kind of clashes with that balmy blue. So what I did is I picked, I believe it was shaded spruce, and the shaded spruce really goes perfectly. If you'll kind of look when I pull this off, it's just a perfect. It's just enough. It's not the same color, but it is a perfect accent. Now here is a this is an ink pen that I use, and I have several of them in my favorite products. And I'm doing the same technique where I'm just coloring around, and I usually color around one side of my image so that it looks like it's got some depth or dimension. And here I'm just kind of picking the right side of my image and then along the bottom. And it kind of makes your image kind of pop a little bit, and you can kind of see how nice they look. Now I'm going to use some dies, and I believe I'm using the rectangle stitch Framelits dies, and in one case I've already cut the scallop contours dies for the pink bunny. But what I'm trying to do is I just want to kind of create a really nice frame. I'm, cutting down every one of them. And I have several sizes there, beginning with the largest and the next size and the next size. That's kind of the layer, because I'm then going to take the next largest size and I'm going to cut a layer piece of cardstock. In this case, it's going to be a brush metallic cardstock for my my little yellow bunny there that I've colored with the crushed curry. Then I'm going to use some silver foil for my little champagne bunny that I used with the metallic watercolor paper. Finally, I'm going to use, and I'm going to put this one. I'm kind of working on the fly as I'm putting these cards together. Like I said, I just sat down and I just started making, and I want to use a black layer for my little balmy blue bunny. And what I'm trying to do now, I'm just basically showing you that I'm using the rectangles, is I'm trying to figure out how I want to mount this little Calypso coral bunny. And I'm struggling with it because I'm kind of making this on the fly, but I think it really deserves something special. So I'm going to come up with a special background for this that I'm going to show you here, because I'm going to be using what I have left over. And you may recognize this paper. This was kind of the rainbow paper from the celebrations that was free. I'm trying to come up with a background. The green and the pink, that pattern's too small. The green is too strong of a contrast. That's a nice match, but it's too strong of a match. I'm kind of playing with the balmy blue bunny, and I kind of like that for the balmy blue bunny with that pink color. I'm still kind of struggling with what I want to do with the little pink bunny, and I'm going to show you here in a minute what I'm going to do. So what I decided is I took some strips, the same DSP, and I'm kind of playing around with it. I'm turning the strips around and upside down. I really like the way that frames it right there. And then I added, I think that was like a soft sea foam or a soft succulent color, and I thought it was just perfect with the pear pizzazz grass. So I'm going to mount that on some white cardstock, and I'm then going to use a base card of black. So there they are. These are the 4 cards. I've kind of chosen the base card color and some ribbon, because I'm going to add some ribbon to these cards as an embellishment. What I'm doing here is I'm just adding these strips. I think these are 1-inch strips. I'm just adding them on a piece of I don't know if it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 cardstock because I'm going to cut this down so it can be larger. You can have a little bit of room to add some white space in between if you want to leave some white space, and then just use your trimmer and trim it down so that it can go on your base card. In this case, my base card is going to be basic black. There it goes. So it fits nicely there. So I think that's a really nice background. And of course, using your bone folder to make sure you have a nice crisp edge. Now this is my little champagne bunny, and I used a Highland Heather as a background, and I believe I used I must have Gorgeous Grape sheer ribbon in my ribbon pile. So I thought that would be a nice, it's a little bit darker than the Highland Heather. It'd be a really nice contrast. I'm just using some a snail to kind of hold the ribbon, and before I put my tear tape on, which is how I mount my tear tape onto my my next layer, which is that silver foil. So there that is. And then I'm going to pop up my silver foil, that foil layer. I'm going to pop it up on some dimensionals to kind of give it just kind of an extra extra dimension. Isn't that pretty? Okay, moving on. Here's our little pink bunny. I'm going to cut my my DSP down. Now all my measurements are going to be on my blog, so just go to that link that's down at the bottom, as well as the link to my favorite products. And that's really a nice contrast with the balmy blue. Now this ribbon is retired from the Christmas, one of the Christmas medley sets. So I had that, and I thought it kind of looked, it looked really nice. Kind of pulled together, pulled that nice pink color into my card with my little blue bunny. So I just kind of adding that very simple knot, just adding it on the bottom, and then mounting that there. So that's a nice look. Now here's my favorite. Had a little glue on that, so I'm just kind of erasing it with a wipe. I was playing around with some of these other ribbons here, but I really love the Bumblebee Gingham ribbon. I thought that was really the prettiest of all the ribbons, and it added nice contrast. It added some texture. I love the monochromatic look with the crushed curry, the brush metallic, and then the crushed curry background. Very, very pretty. Now for this bunny, I did a little bit different. I picked the black and white checked ribbon. I love this ribbon. I think I bought a couple of rolls of it. It's something that goes with everything because it's such a basic black, and I thought it just added just enough different pattern with all the other patterns that are on this to kind of make it pop. I also wanted to put a little bow instead of tying it around the bottom. I wanted to do something a little different, and then I just used some glue dots and just kind of put that there to kind of break up that pink color of my bunny, so that it's a little bit visually, it's a little bit different from the other bunnies. So I really hope you've enjoyed this. I had a great time just sitting back and coming up with all these different, coloring all these bunnies, and then trying to come up with some creative backgrounds, base cards, and layering, and some ribbon ideas for you to use. So please like and share, and come back and visit me, and I hope you like my favorite products link. Happy stamping!